Hi again then guys, and welcome to, of course, the first coverage of the new 1.32 pack here on the channel. And whenever a new pack comes out, we like to do an overarching review of the track, the cars, the features, or at least the highlights of the features. Now, before I get straight into the video, I want to just mention an issue which some people have been having on the channel, where YouTube does not show up the new videos in your feed. And of course that applies more to existing subscribers. So if you've been having this issue, as I know some of you have, like seeing no new videos for like a week or something, then I would recommend following one or more of the following options, all of which are down in the description. And they are the official Twitter, the official Instagram, or the official Discord server of this channel, because new videos are posted on all three of those, and all three have their own advantages. So, of course, if you've been having that issue, check those out. But what then about the pack itself? Well, first of all, let's dive into the new circuit. A circuit which I was very happy to see and to hear about that it was returning, but I never thought it would. I did not think Special Stage Route X had any chance of coming to GT Sport, simply because it doesn't seem like that kind of game. So it's very interesting that they did choose to bring it back, and it's going to be a very popular one. I'm going to say that straight off the bat. It was one of the most popular tracks in GT5, and especially GT6 for online lobbies. You could literally go online any time of day, any time of year, and there would always be dozens of lobbies open there for cruises, for drags, for top speed racing. And of course, I have a ton of love for the track for two reasons. One, I just love that kind of racing, and two, because it had such an instrumental part in this channel's growth. It's literally where we got started, way back as early as late 2013, when I did my first ever tune on this track. And that tune itself started a whole trend in the Gran Turismo community, because it was a tune setup to make the Chaparral 2J do almost 300 in reverse. And then within a few months, you used to see everyone doing that. So what about now? What's the track like on its return? We've had some new tracks, we've had some updated existing ones like Le Mans. So what are my thoughts on Route X, and also on the TVR that I'm driving on the track as well? Well, first of all, for the track, my overall thoughts are mixed, actually, because I love the fact that it's brought back, and it might actually be the impetus that I needed to get PlayStation Plus, because I don't bother with it. I simply don't have enough time after work and YouTube together. But I think I might actually do it now. However, the couple of things that I'm not super into about the track are, for one thing, the texture. The road looks kind of weird. It almost looks too clean, which is a weird thing to say, but if you drive on the track compared to GT6, I think you'll see what I mean. If you've never driven on the track before, you won't notice a thing. But if you know it from GT6, it looks so different. The road looks brand new, which sounds like a good thing, but I almost prefer the way it looked in GT6. And also, the weird thing is that in both of the tunnel sections, and maybe this is the track, maybe it's just the TVR, it doesn't echo. You cannot hear any echo sound difference, at least I couldn't, between the car driving in under the tunnel or out of it, which is kind of weird. So again, we've had some sound issues before with the Formula car, the 787B, so maybe that's an issue, maybe it's a deliberate thing, we'll have to wait and see. Overall thoughts though, hugely happy. This is probably my second favourite update, in fact, second only to the Le Mans update itself. What then about the TVR? Well, the TVR coming back at all also shocks me, because I didn't think TVR was coming back to the game, because of course licensing issues, as with many other companies, are ever present. However, over the past 2 months, I've had 3 manufacturers that I'm a huge fan of all come back around the same kind of time. Pagani, Maserati and TVR are all among my absolute favourite brands. In fact, they're probably in my top 5. So for me, it's been an amazing couple of months on the channel and in the game as well. Now, as far as the TVR overall, of course, we will get into all of the cars in a much more in-depth way in both individual reviews and tunes. And for those who are wondering, yes, this track coming back does indeed mean we're going to be going back to the roots of the channel sometimes to do top speed tunes, and I'm looking forward to doing those in a much more modern way on this game than it was back then. But the TVR I'm very happy with. Across the board, it's what you'd expect from the Tuscan, so it looks good, sounds good, same price as it was before. And of course, it's kind of the flagship of TVR in terms of their more modern stuff from the turn of the century onward. So very cool to see it come back at all. Will other TVRs return? Of course, we'll have to wait and see. The Speed 12 coming back to Forza could be some kind of indication that things are going pretty well as far as TVR licensing, but of course we'll have to see. Now, what about the rest of the cars? Well, first up, let's talk Nissan 350Z. This is probably the car that my expectations were the most neutral on of the whole pack, because I don't dislike it, but I don't love it either. It's just a thing. You know, I don't use it that much, but I know that plenty of people love it, so it's cool for those people. It's a go-to drift car, very popular in all kinds of games that involve street racing, and of course, there were multiple versions, already as far back as Gran Turismo 3 in fact, and incidentally Gran Turismo 3 actually has my favourite version of the 350Z, and it's only featured in that game. The Concept 350Z, very cool looking car I think, completely different looking to the road car, in terms of detail at least, but this one, it pleasantly surprised me. The handling is good, it sounds pretty good as well, and I think it's going to be one to watch around N200 and N300 because it's so cheap. 36,000 credits is really, really good value, and of course the JDM heads are now going to be even more stoked for having the 370Z back as well, but plenty of people will move on to saying stuff like, now we want the S15, now we want the AE86, and those kind of things as well. And of course, this is not the last time we're going to talk JDM in this update, and that I am very happy about. Now the next one is again a car that I am very lukewarm on, but not as lukewarm as the 350Z, because I know that this car definitely has some advantages. Some of those advantages, though, aren't quite as strong now as they were in GT6, and that is the Ferrari Dino, named after, of course, Enzo's son, who died tragically. The car is an interesting take on Ferrari, built, I believe, by Fiat, or some kind of collaboration, if I recall correctly. I've just never been a fan of the car. I don't think it particularly looks like a Ferrari. It could easily pass as something like a classic brand that you've never heard of. But in terms of performance, it does have a lot to offer, in the lower classes in particular, because you've only got 191 horsepower. Now the disappointing thing, I think, is the price. 500,000 credits? Are you serious? Why is this car so expensive? It was no way near that in the previous game, and it was actually priced really well back then. Not the first time that's happened though. The Cobra was the first to do it, being way more expensive than it used to be, but still. Next up we have another muscle car, or as the purists would argue, pony car, not muscle car, of course, the Shelby Gt350r. We had two of these in the previous games, the premium, which was this one, and also the more hardcore race-ready version. This one though, you can kind of make it look like the other one. It can do similar things. The specs were even very similar between those two cars anyway, but once again we've got a huge price jump to 400,000 credits, which is a lot. Let's be honest, that's way too much. It was like 100 grand before. There's no reason why it should be that much, but there you go. It seems to be a running thing for Shelbys to be expensive in this game. But in terms of the way it performs, the way it handles, it's a good one. Of course it's a good drifter. We've got a decent showing for Mustangs in the game now, in both road, rally, you've got classics, racing. It's a pretty good selection of old and new. So yeah, if you're a Mustang fan, of course you're going to like the car. I personally do quite like the classic look of this one. But yeah, my thoughts, of course, will go more in-depth in the review itself. But yeah, pleasant. Looks good, sounds good, handles as you'd expect it to. It's a fairly compact non-muscle car, if you know what I mean. As far as the next one, well, of course, the DC2. One of my most anticipated from the pack, one of my most anticipated in terms of conjecture for the whole game, because we never had a premium. We had a premium DC5, but never a DC2. I love the DC2 Integra. I'm not a VTEC fan, I'm not a Honda head or a fanboy, I just love the Integra. To me, the Type R is one of the best practical performance cars ever made. My personal dream version I don't think will ever be in a Gran Turismo game, and that's the DB8, which is the 4-door version, ultra rare, because that one's even more practical and just as good. This one though, of course it's the one to go for. It's got just under 200 horsepower, the price tag I believe is the same as what it was, 24,000 or just under. Of course this is going to be a force to be reckoned with, and to give you some idea of how good this one is, I tuned this one up to the peak of N200, and it was immediately, because this is my first lap I ever did with the car that you can see here, immediately faster than my N200 Subaru 22B. A rally legend, let's say, with the all-wheel drive advantage of grip as well. this was immediately faster. That's pretty impressive, shows the kind of raw ability that the Integra has. I am hugely happy to have it back in general. The fact that it's a premium, it's just the cherry on the cake. Next up we have an interesting one which a lot of people were anticipating for obvious reasons. We've had definitely more of a focus on Porsche in more recent updates, with the two 911s being added, now this one, the first classic Porsche, in fact, of the entire Gran Turismo franchise, even if you include roof as well, because the closest thing was, what, the BTR, or the CTR I should say, and the Yellowbird as well. They were kind of classics, but this is a full-on classic, super old school, and the things that I love the most about this one are the look. It's a great looking car, but also it feels authentic, because it's based on the Beetle, so it should feel, to some degree, like a Beetle. And it does. That's the really cool thing. This Porsche feels like driving a really fast classic Beetle, which is so appropriate. The weird thing about it is the price. It's 1.2 million credits. That's insane. Now, incidentally, the entire price of all the cars is 12.4 million if you want to buy all 8, or 2.4 million if you just don't buy the Aston. So a pretty huge difference there. But of course we'll get to the Aston in just a second. As far as this one, of course, again, we'll get more into it in its own review. But for tuning, it's got some promise, let's say. N100 in particular, although I will say it was no way near as quick around the Nordschleife as my classic Mini, also in N100. So don't expect too much of this one. It's good, but don't expect it to dominate the K cars, for instance. Next up we have a car which, again, I'm not a fan of. To me, speaking to the recent episode of Beards and Cars about what cars are overrated and what defines an overrated car, this is an overrated car, as far as I'm concerned, because it's priced like a supercar for something which is, at best, just a good sports car. That is, by definition, completely overrated by its own price. It's a stupid car to have a 166,000 credit price tag. It's just an homage to a classic Beamer. There's no reason for it to be that expensive. The only thing that I like about the Z8 is the interior, and as far as its performance, it has plenty to offer, but even then, this thing weighs almost as much as an E92 M3, and that's a 2+2 seater, full luxury, full of tech, more updated tech than this, and yet this weighs over 1,600 kilos. That's weird to me, and it's not like the Bentley Continental GT where it's packed full of luxury. It's just a sports car. So yeah, my thoughts are mixed, to say the least, on the Z8. I know a lot of people love it and hate me for not liking it, but you know, whatever, that's my thoughts and I'm not going to apologise for them. We'll get more into it in a review, and doubtless we will do tuning for it. It might be an interesting Blue Moon Bay alternative, so I'll have a look into that as well. And at the end of the day, if you can earn money with it, who cares what the opinion is? Next up we have the big one, the High Roller, the car which I said I thought would be at least 10 million, if not 20, the Aston DB3S. Tons of people in messages were saying, oh, that's not a DB3S, it's the wrong shape. Funny how quiet those people get when you're right, and yet when you're wrong, you get messages all over the place. Such is the nature of humans. But this one, very interesting addition. It's the first new high roller that we've had in quite some time, because of course we've had a lot of returning ones, but not brand new ones. GT Award winner. Very funny little car to drive, I will say. It's not hugely powerful, 224 horsepower, 224 pound-feet of torque, weighs in at well under a ton, it's like the 800 kilo region, and of course it's significant for Aston Martin. It has an interesting appearance. The front end is kind of Cunningham C4R / Shelby Cobra-ish, back end looks kind of like a Lotus 11, an interesting mix overall. And I love, once again, just like the Porsche, how authentically bad the handling feels. It bounces and twitches around all over the road with those skinny little tyres and the huge wheel wells. It feels like a hoot to drive, it really is. As far as being worth 10 million, well, no. You should buy a Daytona Cobra if you're looking to make money, and you should buy one of the 20 million ones if you want one of those. This one is the middle ground. Is it better than an Alfa TZ2? Potentially. I would not be at all surprised if it's quicker in a straight line. It doesn't have that kind of cornering ability though, but you could have some pretty cool races between this, the Alfa, and potentially the 250 GTO as well, those kind of not quite as quick classics. But yeah, I'm happy that it's in the game. It's pretty cool to see Aston getting way more love in this game than they have in pretty much any of the previous Gran Turismos. So yeah, I'll never complain about that. And finally, we have the features. And of course, the features are, we have a ton of new career mode events, which I won't go into all of those. We've got circuit experience, which is on the Tokyo circuit from the last update. There's been conjecture about whether or not we'll have a circuit experience for Route X. I'm thinking probably not, unless it's some kind of homage to the, I think, driving mission from Gran Turismo 4 with the skyline slipstreaming. That would be pretty cool, but I don't think they're going to do that. Apart from that, we've got new photo mode locations in Cambridge, some of which are already in the game. They've just compiled them and added a couple of new ones. So yeah, as far as smaller things like glitches and patches, to stuff like balance of performance or camera modes, I haven't fully explored all of those, but of course part of the fun is looking for those smaller details as a group, as a community. So as I said, make sure you stick around on the channel for tunes and reviews for literally all of the cars, and plenty of coverage of Route X as well, you can be sure of that. And that's it for this breakdown, so of course stick around on the channel for that, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.